Hi, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for The Walking Dead Season 7, second half. In this video, I review the second half of Season 7 of The Walking Dead, so I'll have to give a spoiler warning for The Walking Dead up to the end of Season 7. If you haven't seen up to this point, you may not want to watch this video, otherwise some things may be spoiled for you. So in this video, I will cover just the second half of Season 7, as I did do reviews for the episodes of the first half of Season 7. However, at the end of that half season, I made the decision that I would no longer watch The Walking Dead on a weekly basis, and I decided to wait until the season finished so I could binge watch the entire second half of the 7th season. I always didn't really see it as advantageous to continue to review this show weekly, as I've grown really sour on the show, and I end up irritating fans that still love this show by being so negative. And personally, I'd much rather focus on other shows that I much prefer, such as Black Sails and The Expanse. That being said, I didn't give up The Walking Dead entirely, and actually thought that perhaps binge watching it may make me appreciate the show more. As many would know, I was completely soured on the show after the horrid Season 6 cliffhanger and its completely telegraphed and unsatisfying conclusion at the start of Season 7. And the rest of the first half of Season 7 was so unimpressive, featuring the same amount of filler-loaded slow pace that has me frustrated with the show. So, first question, did I feel binge watching the second half of Season 7 made me appreciate the show more? And I would actually have to say yes. With a show that is this slow moving, it does actually benefit me to be able to blow through it all in one night, particularly the way each episode changes focus, and with a few filler episodes here and there. It wasn't as frustrating to watch if I could just jump straight into the next episode, as if I had to wait a week, I would be much more frustrating. And the second question is, did I think the second half of Season 7 improved upon the first half? And I would again have to say yes. The second half was more interesting than the first half, and it did improve from what made me want to quit the show. But that being said, I still don't think the show is where it needs to be, because here's the thing. I do very strongly believe that the entire 7th season, all 16 episodes, could have been told in 5 episodes, maybe 6. It's obvious that the entire series is being painfully stretched out beyond belief. Season 7 went down pretty much exactly how I would have predicted before it even started, that it would show Rick and his group terrorized and controlled by Negan and the Saviors, and he would slowly build alliances with other villages such as Hilltop and the Kingdom that were also terrorized by the Saviors, and that they would band together to wage war against the Saviors. And the whole time I've been waiting for them to get to this point, which it was pretty freaking obvious that this is where they were going, and it took them an entire season to get there, and it really didn't need to. At the very least, they could have done this by the mid-season point of Season 7. And this is the part of the larger issue I have with the show. The issue that does have me believing that it's only a matter of time before I quit the show entirely. I'm not ready to do that quite yet, but I know that that day is coming, and the reason is that the showrunners and producers have stated that they have no intentions to end the show and think it could go on for 10, 11, 12 seasons or more. In fact, they think it can just keep going on forever, and that is the main problem. It's obvious that they are stretching out the storyline for all it's worth in order to keep the show going forever. Whereas, had they had an endgame storyline in mind and something that they were building towards, the show would be so much better. And if that story went at a steady pace that made sense for the story, then it would be a good show. But because of the painfully slow, filler-loaded format, it's only a matter of time that I get sick of the show entirely and give up on it, especially if it keeps going for 11 to 12 seasons. I honestly don't see myself watching beyond season 10, if if I even make it that long. However, the only hope I have is that this season has had the lowest ratings that the show has ever had in a long time. And that makes me happy and it gives me hope. Not because I hate the show and want it to fail, quite the opposite. It's more of I hope that the drop in ratings force the showrunners to realize what they're doing is not working and that they can't continue on this way and that they need to change their ways. I somehow doubt it, but if the ratings continue to drop, perhaps they'll be forced to. Who knows? So now let me get into the specifics on the second half of Season 7. So I'm going to go episode by episode to give my impressions of each episode, starting with episode 9, Rockin' the Road. This was actually a very interesting episode as it shows that Rick realizes that he needs allies to take on Negan, so he goes to Hilltop to deal with Gregory, who's a total douchebag, but it occurs to him that they can circumvent Gregory as the majority of Hilltop are starting to appreciate Maggie more as the leader than Gregory. But more than that, Jesus takes Rick over to see King Ezekiel at the Kingdom, and seeing their interactions was golden. I love how Rick wasn't off put by, the whole way they were behaving like a kingdom, and in fact, he does a good job of speaking to him on his terms by telling a very convincing story about a rock in the road, which the episode gets its title from. It did frustrate me a bit that Rick and his crew didn't find out that Carol was at the Kingdom before, and that she's still nearby, and that Morgan lied to them about that, but oh well. The episode did take an interesting turn when the group tried to steal some explosive that the Saviors had laid out, while at the same time escaping a huge zombie horde, which was interesting, because it showed them working together as a team. So not a groundbreaking episode, but it has enough tidbits and important character moments to keep it interesting. So my rating for Rockin' the Road out of 10 is an 8, extremely good. Next is episode 10, New Best Friends, which dealt with Rick and his group meeting with the junkyard people, or scavengers, as I think they're referred to. This episode was okay, I guess. It was kind of interesting to meet a totally different group of people, but the way they acted all weird and just hung out in a junkyard, I don't know, felt a bit silly somehow. But it was still interesting seeing Rick try to reason with them as allies, which ended with Rick going one-on-one in like this gladiator type battle with the spiked up zombie. Kind of cool, I guess. What was more interesting to me was seeing Daryl interact with the Kingdom and learn of Carol, that she was still around, and their interactions were golden. And though I get a bit frustrated whenever, any show that has like this character who refuses to relay important information that the other character is going to find out anyway, but I guess it does kind of make sense that Daryl would be protective of Carol and wouldn't want her to feel bad. So my rating for our new best friends is a 7, very good. Next is episode 11, Hostiles and Calamities. I actually thought the season was going surprisingly good up until this episode. Then I was reminded how much The Walking Dead loves to do boring filler episodes. In this episode, we focus entirely on Eugene as he's forced to integrate into the Saviors, and he finds out that life can be quite good for him if he cooperates. Now, don't get me wrong, I didn't totally hate this episode, as I did find it interesting contrast to see how Eugene reacts to the Saviors, who, unlike Daryl, is not as resistant and ends up going along with it. I like the line when Negan's wives, who tried to trick Eugene into giving them poison so they could kill Negan, how they called Eugene a coward, and he's just like, that would be a correct assessment. I love that. So there were things in this episode I like. I just found the concept of spending an entire episode with Eugene and the Saviors kind of boring. The plot with the wives trying to get poison from Eugene felt very unoriginal, and the type of thing I've seen on this show a dozen times before. So my rating for Hostiles and Calamities is a 5 average. After that comes episode 12, Say Yes. And if I thought that the last episode was boring filler, boy howdy was I in for a treat, as this episode reminded me exactly why I stopped watching The Walking Dead in the first place. This is exactly the kind of boring episode that is the very definition of filler, as its sole purpose is to take up space. As we see Rick and Michonne go out on an adventure to find guns, and I know some may say the interactions between them in this episode was interesting, such as Rick telling Michonne that if one of them dies, the other must go on without them for the good of the group. But interactions like that could have been put into any episode that was actually interesting and not this total waste of space. So my rating for Say Yes is a 3, very poor. But after that came episode 13, Bury Me Here, which reminded me of why I'm still watching The Walking Dead and how great this show can be. This episode followed Morgan with the Kingdom as they still have to deal with the Saviors, and we've clearly seen that Ezekiel's right-hand man, Richard, is clearly unhappy with this arrangement as he went first to Carol and then to Daryl in an effort to do something about the Saviors. But he having been turned down by both of them, he decides to take matters into his own hands with a plan that he suspects will get him killed. So it was just so perfectly eerie the way that they came across this grave that says "Bury Me Here," and at first I have no idea why it's there. But then we learned it was Richard's plan to get killed by the Saviors in order to inspire the others to do something. But his plan backfires, and the poor innocent young father Benjamin that everyone loves is killed instead. And it was absolutely amazing seeing how this affected Morgan, who had gained an attachment to Benjamin, as he had to figure out that it was actually Richard who got him killed, and it eventually broke him out of this no-killing spell that he was under as he kills Richard and then buries him in that grave that he had laid out. It was such a brutal and highly emotional scene. Again, this is what The Walking Dead can be good at when it puts its mind to it. However, I will say that as soon as I saw this Benjamin character at the start of this half season, I thought he might as well have this big red X painted on his forehead, because it was beyond obvious that he would get killed. I mean, the show has become so goddamn predictable. I mean, I guess when they call the show The Walking Dead, it's not really talking about the zombies, it's talking about characters of this one that is so predictable that they're going to die, they might as well be The Walking Dead. Anyway, that being said, this is still a very effective and powerful episode, so my rating for Bury Me Here is a 9, excellent. Next episode is episode 14, The Other Side, where the Saviors come to Hilltop, so Maggie and Daryl need to hide in the basement from them, which does make me wonder why Daryl even went to Hilltop in the first place, and why didn't he just stay at the Kingdom where he was much safer, but I suppose he wanted to be more involved in the strike back plans. Now, this episode was okay, I guess. It was interesting seeing Gregory finally realize that he was losing his leadership to Maggie, but I figured that out ages ago, and I'm surprised it took him this long to do it as well. But we also see Rosita and Sasha go off on a half-baked plan to kill Negan, which of course is going to be successful, because every other of the billion times someone went off on their own to kill Negan, it worked out well for them. But still not a terrible episode, so my rating for The Other Side is a 6, good. After that is episode 15, Something They Need. So we finally get to follow up to that group that Tara met by the ocean side, who are hiding from Negan after he killed all their men. And I have to say, I kind of feel like Rick and his group were in the wrong here, as they went in and asked for their help, but held them at gunpoint, asking for them help, and insisted that they're going to steal all their guns regardless. It doesn't matter what they want to help or what they say, we're taking all your guns. And they didn't even leave them like 1 or 2 guns to defend themselves against walkers. So I'm sorry, but how exactly are the Alexandrians different from the Saviors here? I'm having a hard time trying to tell the difference between the two. In fact, when a few of the Oceansiders spoke up wanting to help fight the Saviors, it felt kind of fake to me, because it seemed to me at the moment Rick's group would be the one that they really want to fight. I mean, how are they not the Saviors? I'm not sure why they would actually want to help them. And I kind of agree with their leader that they should have killed Tara when they had the chance, but oh well. The other part of this episode dealt with Sasha being abducted by Negan after, what a shock! Her attempt to kill Negan failed and ended up in her capture, where Negan, instead of killing her like any reasonable smart person would do, he has some unrealistic expectations of converting her to their side. Gee, we haven't seen that before. And this storyline may have been interesting had it not already seen it a billion times already. So my rating for Something They Need is a 6 good. So finally we come to the big season finale, the first day of the rest of your life. Okay, the first thing I want to get out of the way is that this episode does give me hope that the showrunners are capable of listening to their audience, since this episode very noticeably does not end in a cliffhanger and instead has a very clear ending, but does so in a way that leaves people excited for the next season. Personally, I don't think they needed to stay away from cliffhangers altogether. Just don't make such contrived piles of garbage if you do cliffhangers, that's all. Anyway, this episode worked well as a finale. Granted, it should have come a lot sooner, but it was still exciting finally seeing all the different factions come together to fight the Saviors, and I thought, the show did a great job of ramping up this tension. And of course, like everyone else, I loved seeing the tiger go after and attack the Saviors, and Negan was just like, they have a tiger. That was just awesome. And even though it was a bit telegraphed, I did like how, the tiger made its entrance right as Negan was about to kill Carl. And I have to tell you, had the Saviors actually gotten the better of them and actually killed Carl, and this episode ended with them, under their thumb once again, I probably would have quit the show right then and there, because it would just be repeating the same old shit that we've already seen a dozen times. So I did appreciate that the show avoided that cliche and actually went in a newer and more exciting direction. And I absolutely loved Rick's line about how he was going to kill Negan, even if he cut off his hands, even if he killed Carl, he was going to kill them all, and his statement was, "You're all already dead." I mean, this was such a badass line. I mean, it's what he said in the premiere as well, but Negan got him to back down eventually. But this time, he knew what backing down led to, so he was like, fuck that. And he was just truly a badass Rick moment that I absolutely loved. But now, let me get to what I didn't like about this episode, and I felt was kind of off, was the revelation that the Scavengers betrayed the Alexandrians. Now, don't get me wrong, it made for an exciting ending, and I totally buy that the Scavengers wouldn't have any loyalty to them and would turn on a dime as soon as a better offer was made. But therein lies the problem, and the reason that I totally did not buy their turn is that I don't believe that the Saviors could have made a better offer to them than Rick did, because Rick was offering like a percentage, I can't remember, it was like a third or half or a quarter something of all the Savior shit. And all Negan was offering, if I understand this correctly, was like 12 people. I'm sorry, but that's horseshit. The spoils of all of the Savior stuff would be far, 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 far more appealing than anything the Saviors would be willing to part with, or anything they could get from Rick's group. So that's why their turn felt incredibly contrived and seemed like it was just there for plot purposes and felt really fake and cartoony, kind of like the Scavengers themselves. Now you may say, well, maybe the Scavengers sided with the Saviors because it was an easier fight to win. Well, I'm sorry, but they don't strike me as the kind of people that would back down from a challenge or do something just because it's easy, but that's just me. And the other part of this episode that I didn't really care for were the flashbacks with Sasha and Abraham. Sorry, I fell asleep there just thinking about these totally pointless and useless scenes that are the bane of The Walking Dead, where they think they're being all artistic, but really they're just being boring. And it's not a huge shock that Sasha died in this episode. It was obvious that that's what they were building towards ever since she went on that doomed mission. As soon as she, did do this mission, I knew that she was going to die because the actress is going to star in Star Trek Discovery. Now, when the announcement was made, they even said that, oh, no, this won't interfere with her role in The Walking Dead. And I thought to myself, bullshit. I mean, if she was playing a side supporting character on Star Trek Discovery, maybe, but she's going to be the fucking main character. No way does she do both. That combined with the fact that The Walking Dead loves killing off supporting characters just like her, I knew that she was done for. But overall, I did find this a really exciting and suspenseful episode that does have me invested to see what will happen next. So my rating for the first day of the rest of your life is an 8. Extremely good. So my rating for the second half of Season 7 of The Walking Dead is a 7, very good. Overall, it was a vast improvement over the first half of the season and featured a lot of gems that make me love The Walking Dead in the first place, but at the same time has a lot of boring, pointless filler that makes me want to quit the show as well. However, my rating for Season 7 of The Walking Dead as a whole is a 5 average. As I said, this entire 16-episode season could have been told in like 5 episodes. Maybe 8 if you want to stretch it out a bit. But 16 is totally unacceptable. It's obvious that they're just painfully stretching out the story so they can keep the show running forever. And if they keep doing this, it's only a matter of time before I get fed up with this entirely. So as for my plans for Season 8, I think I'll continue the format of waiting until the half season is over and binging it. That actually worked for me for this half season and helped me appreciate it a little more because I didn't have to spend the entire week with the bad taste of pointless filler episode in my mouth and could just immediately move on to the next episode. Although it's going to be kind of hard because I am a bit eager to see this all-out war, but I know they're going to stretch it out forever like they do with everything, but that's okay. In fact, we probably won't even see the Sages fight anyone until like the mid-season finale, but whatever. So that's it for my review of The Walking Dead Season 7. Be sure to check out my channel as I review many other shows like Game of Thrones, Star Trek, Better Call Saul, The Expanse, 100 and more. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.